America's largest purveyor of abortion claims it had a banner year. Well, if that's the case, why are our tax dollars still flowing to Planned Parenthood? For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. This is Breakpoint. A few weeks ago, Planned Parenthood released an upbeat, even triumphant-sounding annual report for the 2018-19 fiscal year. Despite the increased legal and political challenges they face, the organization claims to have met those challenges, quote, with resolve. This kind of spin is pretty standard fare for annual reports, so it should be taken with a large grain of salt. Still, it prompts an obvious question. If Planned Parenthood's going from strength to strength, as it says it is, why does it still need our taxpayer support? According to the report, Planned Parenthood performed a record 345,000 abortions during the 2018-19 fiscal year. Now, that's approximately 40% of the approximately 862,000 abortions performed in the United States. In other words, Planned Parenthood performed a record number of abortions at a time when the overall number of abortions is declining. Put differently, we might say that Planned Parenthood is cornering the abortion market. The report sounds upbeat because business is good. In fact, it's so good that Planned Parenthood could turn down millions of dollars in federal grants rather than comply with new Trump administration rules that bar recipients from referring clients to abortion providers. With that kind of financial flexibility, why are American taxpayers still forced to fund the organization to the tune of $617 million a year? More to the point, why was the most recent funding approved without the slightest consideration that things could even be different? At least part of the answer to those questions lie in the pages of the annual report. Planned Parenthood claims that it provided 9.8 million services in the last fiscal year. Half of those were what it called STI services and treatment. The rest, birth control information and services, and breast exams and Pap tests. Now, this is, of course, Planned Parenthood's continual and still bogus argument that abortion's less than 4% of what the organization does. I've explained on several occasions why that number just isn't true. Apparently, there's enough elected officials, congressional Republicans included, that either believe Planned Parenthood, don't care enough to learn the facts, or are just unwilling to risk their political careers to do anything about it. And so, the omnibus spending bill passed and signed into law late last year directed $550 million in federal funding for Planned Parenthood in this fiscal year. That's an increase of $20 million over last fiscal year. That, of course, means the impact of the millions of dollars in grants that Planned Parenthood turned down was limited. Rather than comply with the new rules or employ their famously creative accounting, they instead chose to fight the rules in court. They recently lost that fight in the Ninth Circuit. The continued federal funding of Planned Parenthood matters for reasons that transcend just the symbolic or the moral. Nearly 40% of Planned Parenthood's revenue, that's $617 million in the last fiscal year, comes from government sources. Nearly 90% of that amount comes from the federal government alone, which means Planned Parenthood's quite vulnerable, despite the upbeat annual report. If that federal spigot of funds were just turned off or even just turned down, they'd be in big trouble. In fact, we should be asking, why hasn't it been already? We can't blame what's happened, or more accurately, what hasn't happened, just on those in the courts and legislatures, without also pointing to what's happened, or more accurately, what hasn't happened in the public square. See, legislatures will only defund abortion providers like Planned Parenthood if Americans make it clear they view abortion as something that they absolutely will not pay for. And that will only happen if we can continue and compellingly make the case for life. If we fail to do that, then we can only expect more upbeat annual reports from Planned Parenthood, which is America's unquestioned leader of abortion. For Breakpoint, I'm John Stonestreet.